Welcome back to the CyberVault. I'm very excited today to be joined by David DellaPelle. David is CEO and founder of Dune Security. Dune are a company tackling one of the biggest blind spots in cybersecurity right now: how humans actually interact with security policies in the real world. We're going to dig in today into why human behavior is still the weakest link in security, how Dune is flipping the script on security awareness, and what it really means to build a human-first security culture. But David, thank you so much for joining me here. Why don't we kickstart and give you the floor so you can give us a bit more of an introduction to yourself?
Awesome. Katie, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. Like you mentioned, we're building Dune Security. We are a relatively young company, about 2.5 years old, but we are, I like to say, punching far above our weight class in defending some of the biggest enterprises globally from human-centered risk, right? So things like social engineering and insider threats. We are quantifying and reducing that risk and therefore preventing it overall.
Building something very exciting. And you're 100% right. What you've actually been able to achieve in that short space of time is equally as impressive as well. But I think we can really dig in straight away because, like I mentioned, you're really flipping the script on security awareness here. And I think let's just get kick-started as to where maybe you seized the opportunity in the market and realized that there was a big gap in the space. I mean, do you think or I suppose, what do you think is the biggest misconception you're seeing in how companies are thinking about this? More specifically, that kind of like human layer of security.
Yeah, I mean, human layer security, right? Social engineering accounts for something like 85 to 90% breaches, right? When the attackers are coming into the company, they're not using brute force to break down the castle walls. It's a very small percentage of time they're doing that. So a much larger percentage of time, they're actually just tricking employees or soliciting employees or contractors within companies who actually have rightful access into the networks. And so I was looking at this space and with my co-founder, Michael Waite, was realizing that there's a company, many companies, but a couple companies that are dominating in the space, and they offer something called security awareness training. Um, the security awareness training is completely standardized. Everyone's receiving the same, quarterly trainings. People are receiving maybe a phishing test that's also kind of on a regular cadence, manually scheduled, maybe monthly or quarterly, but it's not individually assigned to every user based on their risk and their role. And so it's completely ineffective because high risk employees aren't held accountable and low risk employees' time is wasted. Furthermore, you have this big issue in which the CISO and the end users have a bit of an adversarial relationship because the CISOs are saying, "Hey, do your training," and the end users are saying, "You know what? I don't want to do that. Can you just screw off? I want to get back to my work." So it's kind of a broken model, and we're set out to fix it.
And I think, we could talk about like human first security and what that actually kind of looks like in practice. I think there's another thing that people look at is, oh, it's just a bit of training, like training videos or something that's pretty, I suppose it doesn't actually always set the actual implications of why it's so important that you take this training seriously, because I suppose a lot of people don't necessarily realize the risk or how much of an impact they can have, say if they, I don't know, actually do click on a phishing link or whatever it may be. I mean, kind of like I say, what does this actually look like in practice? What are the things that you can kind of implement here that maybe do keep the employees a little bit more engaged when it comes to this kind of training?
Yeah, I mean, and training isn't the entire answer, right? Training is a piece of the puzzle, and we like to talk about how legacy security awareness training is dead, because we firmly believe that there's something much bigger here. But at the basics, right? If you're just talking about things like training and testing, social engineering testing, like fish testing or SMS phishing testing, um, everything has to be specific to the user, right? You can't have a phishing test or a type of training that's just going generally to every single person, right? There are 8 billion people in the world. Let's say that maybe, a quarter or an eighth of them are in like maybe an eighth are in like a corporate environment, right? Where they would maybe, be on a corporate workspace. That number might be totally off. Maybe you can edit that piece out. For employees who are kind of in a corporate environment using computers, which is a potential source of breach for the attackers to get in, they have to receive both training and testing that's completely specific to their role, right? And then also to their risk through displayed behaviors, right? And so there's a very big picture here that security awareness training is not solving, and we think that that market is a dying one.
Yeah. I think following on from what you just started with there as well, because when you look at traditional security awareness programs and stuff like that, they are kind of dead. They are falling short. But it's like you mentioned, it's probably because it's not just training that are setting the foundations for kind of what can be done here. I mean, what let's dive a bit deeper. I mean, would you say is it like tech issues, culture issues? Is there something else? Like where really are the foundations of where we can be making a difference?
Yeah, I think people talk about how security awareness. Sometimes there's a cop out answer where, oh, it's not the job of the CISO, it's not the job of the security organization, it's not the job of the leadership. I totally disagree. I think there's ways that you can implement technology that can solve this problem. It's not a cultural issue in a company; it's a tech issue. Um, think of it this way, right? The kind of classic analogy of the doctor, right? The doctor needs to run all the tests and exclude all the possibilities before prescribing some sort of surgery or medicine. And that's how medicine works. Why can't that happen with individual use or risk? So, what we do is we pull in a variety of data sources. We launch, automated spear phishing, SMS smishing. We're doing a lot of deep fakes as well as even encrypted channel attacks, simulating those because that's what the attackers are doing, right? Real attackers like Scattered Spider. So we're doing that, but then every single test is specific to the user based on their business impact, which we built a language model purpose built to understand where people sit in this company and what type of risk this type of person puts this type of company at, so that the testing can then be launched completely specific to the user based on their role. Furthermore, we also start to pull in signals from the rest of the stack. So we're doing this with endpoint solutions, identity solutions, DLP, security email gateway, even HRS integrations to pull in those data sources to really pull like a more complete risk picture of each user. At that point, you can then start to train people, right? So for us, what we found is about 70% of users are actually quantifiably low risk, and they should be rewarded with far less testing, far less training, right? Nobody really wants to do training. For the low risk employees, we give them time back so they can get back to their jobs and the work that they really want and need to be doing. There's about 25% of employees who are in the moderate risk category. These employees maybe have a moderate business impact. For example, maybe they're a mid-level, marketing manager, and so they have some access and permissions, but not, the full keys to the kingdom or the castle. Maybe they're failing the occasional attack simulation, and maybe they're a little bit inconsistent in how they deal with trainings. Also, their cyber hygiene might be moderate, right? They might be in compliance with different policies and different configurations across the stack. For these people, the moderate risk, we want to move them into the low risk category, but through things like completely targeted user adaptive training, right? Specific to their risk and their role. But when we look at these people, there's still a 5% of high risk employees who might be even negligent, right? They could be negligent, they could be even malicious insiders. Sometimes the 3 to 5%, no amount of training is really ever going to fix them. So what we want to do is create maximum risk thresholds for these employees and really integrate with the rest of the security team to start to lock these users down, right? So performance management could be a solution. Access restrictions could be a solution. And it's really up to the company at that point, but we provide the intelligence, the real-time intelligence for them to make the right decisions.
I suppose that's really what defines how much of a differentiator you are in the market as well. And I think we can really talk about data-led decisions are ultimately pretty key and I think when it's easier to make a decision when you know why you're making it rather than just having somebody tell you, oh well, this is the best thing. It's actually really getting down to the, okay, I understand this, but it's like you say, you don't want to be penalizing or arguably kind of making people who don't need the investment feel like, oh, I'm wasting my time doing this. I suppose it probably builds up a resentment to the prospects of security and why they need to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, I think you've kind of touch base on a couple of things here, but if we were to look at what security leaders really need to either stop doing or really start doing if they actually want to influence secure behavior in the businesses, is there a real defining kind of thing that you would say, this to me is something, especially if you look at all the intelligence that you've been gathering, that's kind of a big standout?
Yeah, kind of the smoking gun for the industry, like the biggest concern.
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
for me, what we've been looking at is off-channel attacks very deeply. So it's not just how secure is your email or how accurate is your quantification of risk through things like email phishing simulations, right? It's or even sometimes SMS on work phones. It's a bit deeper than that, right? What happens when an advanced persistent threat group like Scattered Spider is going off-channel, right? Through things like Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp on your employees' personal devices. There's no corporate cybersecurity solution that can help with that if Scattered Spider is soliciting employees, right? So it's a bit of a challenging situation for these companies because it's a complete blind spot. They have no idea how to quantify that risk, of course, until Dune Security was built.
Yeah. And I suppose then, if we're going to look at kind of a key change that whether it's CISOs, security leaders that are listening in, what's something that they could really look at? And even if we just try to put it into, say, this quarter, something that's immediate and measurable that they can really make an impact in, what would you say, okay, this is the first thing that you should look at. This is really where you're probably going to find you're going to have the biggest impact at the quickest kind of rate.
Yeah, I think if you can actually quantify risk automatically, you can then uh, kind of reduce risk automatically and reduce risk both in terms of social engineering risk, but also time wasted. So the biggest thing is you need the AI in the back end to automate a lot of these previously manual workflows, right? There are amazing security awareness and GRC, human risk and readiness professionals in large enterprises that report up to the CISO. These individuals are spending way too much time manually dealing with low risk employees. So if you can automate that process and really find the low risk employees in an automatic sense, you can then spend more of the manual effort, the targeted effort on the high risk employees. And so I think that's kind of the key unlock. It's not about replacing any function. It's about really enabling and empowering that function with really powerful AI.
Awesome. And do you think other kind of, are like ways you can really measure success when it comes to kind of changing user behavior? Or as you kind of put there, if there's a small category of individuals that you really want to, I suppose, be focused around, are there specific metrics that really matter here that are measurable that you can kind of see, okay, what we're doing is having a positive kind of influence here?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty robust algorithmic approach to risk quantification. Um, but what we do, which I think is pretty powerful, is we're able to really prevent like repeat offenders, right? If someone's failing a simulation or they're displaying high risk behavior in one instance, we'll just go again and test them on that same thing, right? So once they'll receive like a just in time training assignment based on their points of failure, so people are trained on what they're bad at and not what they're good at. Um, but yeah, we can then test them again on that same thing and see if they've actually improved over time. So I think that's kind of the key unlock that we've seen for Dune Security and for our current customers, the likes of OSF Healthcare or Warner Music Group or Polygon.
No, for sure. And I think sometimes that's the most important piece, isn't it? You want to know that what you're doing is having that positive impact. And I kind of, whether it's onboarding new people and making sure that you're kind of preventing it from the get-go, but ultimately it's typically your employees that are used to their kind of, I suppose, their routine, the way that they're working, and change is often really hard to adapt to and I suppose to implement as well. And have it positively received. That can often be one of the biggest challenges. I mean, to kind of dive into you guys in a little bit more detail, because I think it's really obvious that this is a huge gap in the market. Everybody knows that humans are arguably, the biggest vulnerability of most businesses, especially when it comes to security. But you guys are still in early stage mode. You've achieved unbelievable things in the past couple of years. I mean, what's kind of been the biggest challenge in building a security product that's prioritizing people?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've done, I think, pretty well is like provide amazing customer success engineering, configuration, and customization for the enterprise CISO and their team, security organization, right? And so I think the challenge is to prioritize. You want to optimize for the whole, right? She who optimizes for the whole is rewarded, right? And so for us, there's always competing priorities on what to build, right, in the product roadmap. And so for us, it's very important to figure out using simple things, kind of like even the RICE framework, right, which is a product management framework. Um, you know, what is the most important thing to build urgently today versus what can we actually deprioritize to tomorrow? So I think that's probably the challenge is like we're not we want to reduce human risk and prevent social engineering and insider threats for every enterprise automatically. And so there's a lot of different companies that have different needs and trying to, build to meet those needs, I think is the most important thing.
No, for sure. And then let's kind of look to the future a little bit, because as I've mentioned several times, to be fair, you've obviously been on an exciting journey. You've built something that's really valuable, but obviously you are still early into the journey. I mean, what's kind of the next steps for you? What's in store? Is there any particular solutions that you're working on that you're excited about? Is there any part of the next 6, 12, 18 months that you're thinking, yeah, this is another kind of, not necessarily a product defining category, but something that's really exciting that we're kind of really working towards?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things, right? There's something we're releasing today, which is the end user vision playground. So every user, we have millions now, can go into the platform and clone their voice, right? And we can show you show every user how easy it is to actually clone their voice, right? And it'll tell a story back to the end user. Uh, and so just that ability to really increase the user engagement, I think is quite powerful. Um, so we're doing a lot of things like that, a lot of things to enable the security awareness managers and human risk and readiness folks as well. But in the longer term, we're doing some really, really interesting things around security automation, right? So the idea is once we can, right now, what we're focused on is quantifying risk and reducing risk, right? For on the human layer, it's super important for us to be trusted by every enterprise that we're the best at doing that. Once we can do that, we can get deeper into the rest of the stack, right? Imagine a world in which your network could be segmented automatically based on human risk profiles, right? Or MFA step up can be enforced based on human risk profiles or email security thresholds, things of that sort. So you have to start somewhere and everything takes time. But I think in the future, getting more into the automation world will be very, very exciting for us for that last mile, right? Those 3 to 5%. Because right now, it's a little more semi-automated where we're integrating and looping in the security operations team and the identity access management teams within the platform. But to actually be, writing on systems in the future in an automatic sense, I think will be powerful.
Absolutely. There's definitely some exciting times ahead. But ultimately, like I say, what you've already been able to bring to the table is definitely leveraging something that's needed in the market. I mean, so David, for anyone that's been listening today, that's resonated and they've gone, "Oh, well, yeah, okay, we need a bit of this. We need a bit of this in our company." I mean, how can they get in touch? How can they follow the journey? What's the best way to kind of reach out and get connected?
Yeah, I mean things are quite busy right now with demand. We're having a little bit of trouble candidly meeting demand for our services because the threats are so high. That said, we have a very high touch process to help people learn about the risks and then to implement solutions using Dune Security. The best way to get in touch is to go to our website, Dune Security, Dune.security, so Dune dot security, and you can book a demo. Now, It's likely that I'll even be on that demo. We're building out a sales team. We're about 10 people right now on the go to market side, but I'm still pretty heavily involved. So I really look forward to any of your listeners and viewers. Look forward to speaking with them directly if they go to Dune Security and set up some time to chat with our team.
Fantastic, and that's what we mean. Exciting times, and you know when the demand for something like this is surging high, and you can clearly see, David, there's passion here. But and I think ultimately that's how you know that the bones of a business is and the foundations are being built with something that's truly holding value, because it's somebody who's very much still there working away with the team. But David, thank you so much for such a real and forward-thinking conversation. It's clear that if we want security programs to actually work, we need to kind of stop treating people like the problem and maybe start designing with them in mind. To our listeners, as always, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure to share this episode with your security peers. Get connected with us. Obviously, get connected with David and the team. But that's it for today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time for Conversations Shaping Cyber.